Sean here with BaseMint Comics, and in this episode I'm going to talk about how reading a letters page in the back of an Avengers comic from 1977 led me to finding a relative and lucking into quite the collection. So let's get into it. I got to kind of give you a little bit of a backstory here. So, about a year and a half ago, a few years back, I started reading basically all of my collection from the jump, FF number one, and kind of cycled everything in. It's sort of what birthed the Corner Box Classics video idea, was me like reading my collection, kind of realizing like as I got older, I'm like, oh, I'm picking up all these back issues throughout my entire life. It's about time that I start reading all of them kind of in order. And one of the things that I love to do, and I've always loved to do, is read the letters page of comic books. I've never really been a forum or message board guy, mostly because I do not have the time nor want to like argue. And so like anytime that I would like put a point out there, there's always going to be somebody that's like, well, actually, and I just never really had like the time or want to go back and forth about that type of thing. So when it came to comic book message boards, I was more of a lurker than an engager. And I liked the time period, like back in the day, if somebody wrote a letter to, like, one of my favorite letters pages to read is like a few issues after Giant Size X-Men number one. Just the staggering amount of hate mails that they got for introducing the new X-Men, which is hilarious to me because it just kind of makes me like, when the temperature in the comic fandom these days gets a little hot, I look back to those old letters pages and kind of realize that like this is just cyclical in nature, and like people were just as angry about them getting rid of Stan and Jack's X-Men and how dare they to replace them with this new, so on and so forth. So anyways, it's just a little thing I like to do. It's occasionally nice to see, Kurt Busiek, great writer. He wrote a ton in to Marvel, and it's kind of interesting to see creatives that wrote in when they were younger. And I've had friends that I've sort of stumbled across, guys that I've, gone to the comic book shop with for years, or people that I run into at local shows and stuff like that, that, I'll occasionally come across a letter of theirs, like I just talked about in the last Corner Box Classics. There was a letter from my buddy JJ in that issue of Dazzler, and that's always nice to see, like kind of stumble upon one of those things. So all this to say, about a year and a half ago, summer 2024, I was getting ready for bed. I read before I go to sleep. It kind of calms me down, shuts the brain down. And I happened to read Avengers number 164. Great issue, super fun. And when I got to the letters page, I was reading the letters, and oh man, Nefarious shows up at the end of this issue. It's so good. So I get to the letters page, and I'm reading this letter in here. I'm finding myself agreeing with the guy that wrote the letter. And then I get down to the name. They used to put their names and addresses, so other, maybe you'd get a pen pal out of it or whatever. And I came across the name, and I saw it, and I was like, that's my aunt's last name. And the address is in my state. The address was Ann Arbor, and that's where I work. And so I was like, I know that the family lived up in the Thumb, but like, who knows? And so I reached out on social media to the person who matched the name in the letter, and I sent him a message, and I was like, hey, like, I'm a big comic book fan, and I read the letters pages, and I was reading this issue of Avengers number 164, and I came across this letter, and it might have been by you, and like, you share the same last name with my cousins, and like, yada yada yada, and blah blah blah, and like, this is who I am in the family, and I was like, if you don't read comics, none of what I just said is going to make sense. You might not be the guy, and if that's okay, just let me know or ignore it, and I'll try to track down the right one. And so a few days later, I got a response, and he was like, "Hey, Sean, yeah, we're cousins through marriage. So I'm related to the aunt. He is related to the uncle that married. So it's like my mother's sister married his uncle, and that's how we're connected. So through marriage." And so it's like, oh yeah, blah blah blah. And we got going on. Like, I was kind of like, how did we never? I've been up to that farm for so many family reunions and funerals and baptisms and so on and so forth. Obviously he's older than I am. Not by a ton, but definitely enough that when I was up there as a kid, there wouldn't have been any reason for him to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go talk to this 8-year-old, but we were, discussing that type of thing. And then, he was like, hey, in the old family farm, which is this historical farm, it's a historical landmark up there in the Thumb bit of Michigan. He was like, I still have my collection from when his folks would go into the nearest big town that had a grocery store, and he'd buy them off the grocery store rack, because there weren't specialty stores back then. It's like, I still got, I've gotten rid of a lot of it throughout the years, but I still have a pretty good chunk. It's just kind of chilling in this space. Would you want to take a look at it and pick out some stuff that you would like? We'd work out some type of a deal. And so I traveled up there with the family. My wife and Henry went with us, and at first it had started out where, like, I sort of asked him about I was looking at the time for where I was in the Cornerbox Classics read. I was looking for Marvel team-ups and Marvel 2-in-1s. And so he was sending me some of those. He sent me, let's see, that first round of stuff that I wound up getting was a hefty chunk of Marvel 2-in-1s, Marvel team-ups, almost an entire run of the original Miss Marvel series, which, I completed, because that was, then there was when I went up there to look through the box, I was blown away. There was a lot of stuff where I was like, man, you have some absolute gold here. There was a box that was just Kirby Fantastic Four. And we talked about that. I kind of steered him in the right direction. He was able to sell the Galactus trilogy closer to when the movie came out, and was quite pleased with how much he got for it. And I wound up picking up the Marvel features and the first 100 issues of Defenders, a solid chunk of my Iron Man, Demon in a Bottle, Armor Wars, that type of stuff came out of this collection. He very big into cartooning, and so he kind of like was like, hey, you're going to take some of these like Love and Rockets and some independent comics, because he knew that I was a Marvel guy, but was also like, you need to kind of take a peek at some of this stuff. And so it was a great trip, got a lot of stuff that's filed away, and kind of like he likes the fact that it's here in this museum, and it's like a kind of a fun story, I guess. And while we were talking, one of the things that sort of blew me away was he was telling me about how his wife, his now wife, girlfriend at the time, she was in charge of getting like speakers for colleges at the time. And so she had like one night tossed him a list of people to come and visit the college and do a speaking engagement. And she was like, hey, look through this list, see if there's anybody that like strikes your fancy, and let me know. And so he's looking through the list, and he's like, well, what about Stan Lee? And she's like, well, reach out to him. So they reach out to Stan Lee. He agrees to do the college speaking engagement, and they wind up like being in charge of taking him around, and like took him out. They went out to dinner, you know, and like he had like, I mean, he wasn't pulling my leg. Like he had photos and like a note that Stan had signed him, thanking him for the hospitality. Just crazy stuff. So pretty wild thing to have happen, just because I read a letters page. So in that short video you saw, the place is in the tip of the thumb on the Lake Huron side, a little lake house. So I had reached out, and I was like, hey, I've really kind of like, throughout reading those Iron Man issues that I got, I've really kind of enjoyed Scott Lang and his relationship with Cassie. And I was like, any chance that you still have Marvel Premiere 47 and 48? And he was like, let me check. It might take me a couple days because I moved him into a different area. So a couple days he got back to me, and he was like, I sure do, but I'm not going to ship them to you. I want you guys to come up and visit. So that's what you saw, the little cut to video there of the lake and me going through the boxes. So I was going to show you. I wound up, basically, we kind of agreed that, like, he's ready to get rid of this stuff. And there's more avenue for me to meet dealers and so on and so forth, to try to like get him what he wants out of this, while I get some of the things out of it that I would like to, for taking care of this. For instance, like, he needed a bookcase built over the weekend, so that's what I did for these 2 issues, which I got to tell you, building a bookcase for these 2 fantastic John Byrne drawn, David Michelini written first appearance of Scott Lang, definitely worth it. I was going to run through some of the crazy stuff that I've been stumbling upon in this collection. Tales of Suspense, what is it, 59? First appearance of Jarvis. That's pretty crazy. And all this stuff, like, today, we had kind of one of our, in December, one of the local, like, it's like a Knights of Columbus Hall. They do a show here. And as a thank you to everybody, they do it about once a month. And as a thank you to everyone who comes out to that, they make the last one, the Christmas show, free admission. I mean, admission normally is only $3, so it's not that big of a deal, but it's kind of a nice thank you at the end of the year for them to do that. So I took a sampling of the books up there, because I've never been, nor do I have any aspirations to be a seller or a flipper. I like am even struggling, like, as I look through this stuff, I'm like, oh, well, I want that. So there is part of it that's like tugging at my heartstrings, because I'm like, this is all fantastic. So I've never like had the want to do that, and I'm not really a grader. Like, as long as I can read the issue and it's not like disintegrating into my hands, I'm happy. So I wanted some people to kind of, like, some dealers that I've dealt with throughout my years of reading comics, and some friends that I have that sort of set up tables, because I have like one buddy who sets up a table, because he gets comps from being like a comic journalist, and kind of wanted to put the feelers out there of like, are these in pretty good condition? Because they look fantastic to me, and I am happy to say that the consensus was everybody, loved the story of how this all came about, and B, everyone was pretty much flabbergasted at how good these books are, considering they have been in like an old barn, since they were purchased off the rack at a grocery store. Let's see, Tales of Suspense 63. It's the retelling of an origin of Cap. Tales of Suspense 64. It's the third appearance of Hawkeye and the first appearance of that weird Black Widow costume. A couple other Tales of Suspense. This one, first appearance of MODOK. That's pretty cool. So all of these were in... Hang on. None of these were bagged and boarded. He just put them in bags, and this is where they've been for a great cover. Like, what a great cover of that Submariner. So I've been sort of putting them in bags and boards because I feel they present better, because I already set up for a couple people to come out and like kind of make an offer on some of the stuff. I've set aside some stuff that I'm kind of like, I'm going to have everybody look at the first wave of it and sort of make their offer. And then if I have to toss in some of the books that I was hoping I might be able to work out a deal with to sweeten the deal, that'll be the case. So then, yeah, there's some like astonishing Ant-Man, these Marvel features, just fantastic stuff. And it's like, where we were staying was like a little tiny, like bunkhouse sort of next to the main house. And Henry was enjoying a Winnie the Pooh while I was going through these boxes. And there were a couple times where I was like, oh my God. And my wife was like, what? And she was like, oh, is it going to be something that you're going to want? And it's like, it's not even sometimes me wanting something. It is legitimately just like, that's just exciting to look at. And like, before it goes to the home that it's going to go to, it'd be nice to even sit there and read it. Never thought I'd have, I kind of have noticed that my sweet spot is 70s and 80s, not so much 60s. But all this stuff would be fantastic to read. So I am going to, let's see, I'll go through and grab some others. I have a little table over here, and then there's quite a few long boxes. So I was just going to go through some stuff to kind of give you a feel of like how crazy this collection is. These were nice for me to see because I hadn't seen them since I was a kid. These Ninja Turtle Adventures, I remember having these as a kid, and I see that they go for, they're, these Donatello #1, 2 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Mirage Days #5. I guess one of these would be a variant cover. My parents had this, I got a #1 of these when I was a kid. Actually, quite a few of these I had as a kid, but I was a child when I got them, and I was into, this Ninja Turtles as a kid. And so I was very disappointed when I got these one Christmas that they weren't in color. So my claim to fame is amongst my peers and pals in our little comic scene is that I actually took crayons to my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Mirage era of the Turtles, and colored them in myself. Which, you'll live and learn. So there's quite a good, these are all, so like all of those were 10 and under, and then it's like 11, issue 12, 13, it's a great cover, and number 14, 15, 16, I believe this is 17, but I could be wrong. I think the number's on the back. 23. Then there's Eastman and Lair's Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You know, quite a few issues of that. And I'm not 100% sure, but that's Mirage Studios' Prime Slime Tales. So I thought that was like, those were interesting, and it brought back a lot of memories of me being a kid, taking a look at those. So I'm not much of a Marvel horror guy, but I know that there's a good chunk of people that are out there. So one of the things that caught my eye, and I mean, this is a beautiful copy of this, was Marvel Spotlight on Werewolf by Night, #2. That's the first appearance of Werewolf by Night. Number 3 through 6 is not here. I imagine that those were sold off in the years. But yeah, 7, 8, 9, another copy of number 9, 10, 11, 12, 2 copies of 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, pretty sharp copy of 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, first appearance of Jessica Drew, then 33, you get the second Marvel Spotlight series on there, which I think a big book of note is like the retelling of Star-Lord's origin there, but that's a complete run of that. And so then along the same lines of the horror books, there's this 18-issue lot of The Monster of Frankenstein, which I'd never even heard of, but I'm sure that there is a Frankenstein monster person who is going to be jazzed if those wind up in their home. Then I'm always a big fan of these. There's a Man-Thing power record with the record still in it. And then this is a series that I never knew about. Adventure into Fear, number 10. So these are 11, 12, 13, no 14, but there's 15, 16, 17, another 17, 18, 19, and on a personal note, when it comes to Man-Thing, the band I was in contention to be, we were in the running to be on the soundtrack for the first Fantastic Four movie, but then they made a really B, like kind of not great Man-Thing movie, and one of her songs wound up in the soundtrack to that. So there you have that. These ones I actually wanted to flip through and kind of see maybe if these might be up my alley because I like the character. But the Adventure into Fear continues on with Morbius the Living Vampire, and so there's a complete run of, and my guess is that this one is like a very early Blade appearance. We got issue 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, and 31. And so all pretty cool. Like I said, this is not something that I would normally go out and like search through back issue bins for, but it's been really cool to kind of just flip through them, open them up, see who's writing them, see who's drawing them. Really cool. So like I said, one of the boxes that I saw the first time that I was over there was a Kirby box. He kept those because he obviously knows exactly what those are worth and wants to kind of handle those by himself, which I completely understand. He might even want to keep some of those for himself. But I have a complete run of Fantastic Four, but the first 140 issues are in Epic Collections. And so I was very happy to find 121 through that 146 cutoff point. I have single issues from 147 to the beginning. And then there were these giant size Fantastic Fours. First appearance, Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man, which I have a copy of, but this is a much nicer copy of. So, you know, that's always exciting to upgrade. Number 5. Number 6, so when Henry was first born, I took him to the church that I went to when I was a kid had a comic book show in like the gymnasium. And so I was like, well, that's like my mom's funeral was there. Like, it's where I was confirmed. It's where I grew up. It's where I met my best friend. It's where I read tons of comics as a kid. So I was like, that's the perfect show to take Henry to for his first ever comic show. Like, it's too much of a personal connection. And so a buddy of mine was there selling books, and he had this, which is a reprint of the first appearance of Annihilus and When Franklin is Born. And so I have a copy framed in my office of this that is Henry's when he gets old enough, because this technically was the first comic that he ever got. So, king size special number 7 and number 9 for the Fantastic Four stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. Then, obviously, in the little video that I had going on before, like 147 to like 350 is in one box, complete, like the whole John Byrne run, everything. So I have no need for those, but I am hoping that they go to a nice home. Supervillain Team Up. I was missing a few issues of these, so I was able to, in this collection, kind of complete that run, which was very cool to do. So, I mean, if you've paid attention to any of my videos, you know that I am primarily I say primarily, like I am a Marvel guy. I've always been a Marvel guy. It's nothing personal against the distinguished competition, but Marvel just got their hooks in me first, and it's like a sports team. Like, I was born in Detroit, so I'm a Red Wings fan. But when I saw this, I got pretty jazzed, because I think if there was like a DC story that if someone was like, hey, you had to read a DC story, what would you want to read? This is the complete collection of Crisis on Infinite Earths, including issues 7 and 8. And I got to admit, really sharp looking copies that have been in a barn. There is like 2 boxes of DC stuff there that I have a DC pal coming over to take a look at, because there could be gold in there. There's like old Shazams and like The Question and OMAC and all sorts of stuff. Like, I know that that's the first appearance of Kilowog, but like beyond that, DC's a bit of a black hole to me, and I didn't want to be getting like, I want to do right by a person who has entrusted me with this collection. So I want to make sure that I have a handle on exactly what, there's some old Shadow stuff in there, old Justice League stuff in there, like Shade the Changing Man, a whole run of Plop, which looked like DC's version of maybe Mad Magazine. Thought that was pretty interesting. So that was kind of fun to look through. Then there was a good solid chunk of some classic Barry Windsor Smith Conans. I thought this one was pretty interesting. That's issue 24, which happens to be the first second appearance of Red Sonja, first cover appearance of Red Sonja, 23 is not in here. It goes 22 to 24. So I'm imagining he knew that the first appearance of Red Sonja was in there and probably sold that off. Issues 1 and 2 aren't here, so maybe he kept those because I know he was a pretty big Conan guy. 2 copies of Web of Spider-Man #1. Marvel 2-in-1 Annual #2, which if you've never read, super fun. Death of Thanos. A couple of old Rawhide Kids, which I thought was cool. There is a stack of Incredible Hulks, which I have not gone through, but I did see this one, and of note, that is the first appearance of Abomination. There's a Spider-Man #1 in there to go along with that first appearance of Jessica Drew. So this is a series that I was pretty excited about when I saw that they were in there. I am a very big fan of Kazar. When I was a kid, the cabin that I would go to in the summer with my best pal acted as our savage land, obviously, because there was acres and acres of wood, and it was on a river. So, you know, playing with our toys, it was perfect for it to act as either savage land or Genosha. And I've talked about that, and that has always made me think of Kazar as like X-Men adjacent. So there was this Astonishing Tales featuring Kazar and Dr. Doom, and this issue #3 is missing, which is the first appearance of Zaladane, and I would love to track that down. Issue #5, issue #6, issue #7, issue 8, and this one stood out to me because there was like Ed Brubaker once talked about how much he loved this Dr. Doom story in this issue. So like over the summer when I had read that, I searched this one out, but didn't wind up pulling the trigger on it. And I'm happy that I didn't, because it's in this. And then it kind of switches over to mostly Kazar in these next issues. Kazar getting tossed around by Man-Thing there. There's a few, this isn't a complete run, it's missing issue #14. There's a few holes in here, but I think it's like 3 issues tops. Kazar versus Gog, 19, 20. Then it gets into this this It story for 4 issues, and this one is the second appearance of Fin Fang Foom. So that was, like, again, pretty cool to see. Not anything that I absolutely need in my collection. So then this was pretty neat. 2 copies of the first appearance of Deathlock, and then 2 copies of the second appearance of Deathlock. Why do I keep on saying Deathlock? 27's missing. So it's 28. This is a pretty great cover. It's a reprinting of the origin of the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it has 4 less pages than the original story. Then it cuts back over to more Deathlock in this. Somebody knew what they were looking for when they looked through this, because this is 2 copies of Secret Wars #1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 got sold. 9, 10, 11, 12. But still, that's a, I have the entire series. So obviously, no interest in owning 2 copies of it. But I'm sure there's someone out there that is looking for Secret Wars and will be a-okay with getting it piecemeal. Then there was first Punisher miniseries, and this I actually had, but wound up getting rid of it. I traded it. Well, basically, I sold it at a show that Henry and I went to, and it basically paid for the show. This was like 2 years ago, I think, and I sort of regretted it because I'm not really a Punisher guy, and I didn't read it, and I was like, maybe I would have really loved it. So when I got to this, I was like, hey, look, I get an opportunity to read it. So we'll see if I like it. Or someone else is going to find themselves in possession of the first Punisher miniseries. Marvel Feature 11. I think that's the first time the Thing and Hulk fight. Marvel feature number 12. And then it is like the first 35 issues of Marvel 2-in-1, which I had these in an Epic collection. So I'm kind of hoping to get rid of the Epic collections. And great Christmas issue, which is the perfect time to remind you that I have a Instagram account that goes with the YouTube. It's at BaseMint Comics, and I have been doing Christmas comic advents, and this was yesterday's because I found it. It's a great issue. I've obviously read all of this Marvel 2-in-1 stuff before, but never actually had the single issues. I owned it in Epic collections, and so this was pretty exciting because I plan on some of those Epic collections are out of print, and so that'll be nice to go towards that. Then there's a big chunk of, oh, some of the comics are moving. Big chunk of Marvel Premiere in here. Obviously, I have gotten a few of those. The Man-Wolf issues were something that he sent me a while back. And then, like I said, I put in the request for the Ant-Man issues. You know, you got 3D Mans in here. Torpedo, Seeker 3000, Tigra, Paladin, Jack of Hearts, Falcon, Black Panther, oh man, Battle in the Claw, Wonder Man, and then first Doctor Who in comics. That's very exciting. I had this issue, but I gave it to a buddy who's very into Tom Baker Doctor Who. Watched it when he was actually he was the singer in my band. If you've ever watched any of the videos that have like normally on the bike ride thing, it's just music, but occasionally there were songs. That was the band I was in, and the singer is a very big Tom Baker Doctor Who fan, so I gave those to him one Christmas. There's this Inhuman series, like 12-issue Inhuman series, which looked pretty fun. Gonna give that a read. I definitely have enough reading material for a long time. Another thing that I was very happy to find in there is the first mini-series for Cloak and Dagger, because that's coming up in about a year in the Corner Box Classics. So I was pretty excited about stumbling upon that. And then looks like possibly the second mini-series, or at least the first 4 issues of an ongoing. I'm not 100% sure if this is an ongoing or not. Like I said, a lot of this stuff I am still kind of in the process of researching. Some old Strange Tales are also in there. Issue 140, 143. Sorry if these aren't showing up great. Really kind of dug this cover of 148, 149, 150, 151, but it looks like somebody colored in the Doctor Strange. I can't complain about that because of what I did to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. 155, 156. It's another cool cover is 168. Trying to not get a glare. 174, these Gollum issues. Then a couple copies of 178 with Warlock. 179, 180, 181. So that's pretty exciting. Some Strange Tales in there. I'm gonna go grab some Hulks. So this is a stack of Hulks. You got giant size Hulk 1, 2, king size special 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 109, which is a Killer Savage Land Kazar cover. 117, 119, 120, jumps to 126, kind of all over the place here. 133, 139, 140, 144, which is a pretty great Doctor Doom versus Hulk cover. 150, which I already have because it's got, you can see Polaris on the cover when her and Havoc are like geologists in between, when they're like not X-Men before being pulled back into it. 157. 161 is another one that I have in my collection because this ties into Amazing Adventures when Beast is turned blue and furry. 165. 171. 180, 181. I'm just kidding. It immediately jumps to 184, sadly. You have the moment where you're like, could I be one of those people? I am not one of those people. 185, 186, 187, 188. Probably not doing a good job of holding these up. 189. Also don't want this video to be 2 hours. 190, 191. Sort of goes, yeah, goes through there. Let's see. Issue 200, 201. Let's see. Got pretty jazzed when I saw issue 212 because that's the first appearance of Constrictor. I mean, that's not some like crazy valuable book, but I just thought it was fun. I was like, oh, it'll be cool to give that, you know, a read. 214, 215. A lot of these just have super fun covers. 216, 217, 218. Hulk versus Rhino. 219. It's Hulk smashing some stuff up. 220. 221. 222. 223. 225. 226. 228. Wonder if that's the, looks like it might be the first Moonstone. Yeah, 229. Like it's a pretty solid run of Hulk there. 2 issues of 319. Don't know why, but clearly he knew why. All right, so I am kind of winding down on this. There's still a couple boxes, but like I said, I don't want this video to be hours long. There's these Marvel Presents Bloodstone, which I imagine is some of the first appearances of the Bloodstones. 3, 4, 5, 6. These are all Guardians of the Galaxy appearances. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Oh, there's Marvel Spotlight #1, Red Wolf. Couple issues of Tales to Astonish, number 66, 77, 96, which is a pretty cool Submariner cover. Tales to Astonish, starring the Submariner #1, and then Amazing Adventures #1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12. This is when Beast turns blue and furry. 13 or 14, 15, 16. I think this has the Halloween parade. I can't think of the name of it, but there's like this Halloween parade thing that happens in like issues of Defenders, and it's like the first ever Marvel DC crossover. Like, I don't know, I gotta open this up and take a look at it. I think I talked about it a little bit in one issue, but it's the Rutland Halloween Parade in Vermont. And like Steve Englehart and Roy Thomas and those guys are actually like characters in the book. And it was like a very famous Halloween parade where like the town went like all out on like superhero costumes and stuff like that. So there are issues where in DC they do it, and issues in Marvel where they visit the Rutland Halloween parade, and it's just a very cool little thing. That was, I guess, the first Marvel and DC crossover. War of the Worlds 18, 19, 20. And this goes on and on and on until issue 28. So, and then 29 through 39 are Killraven and more War of the Worlds issues for Amazing Adventures. So yeah, that was what I was up to this weekend. That was a the coolest thing about it was sort of finding a I guess sort of cousin through a letters page, and it kind of leading to this wild ride of like going through his collection, seeing what he liked. There's also like he let me take a box of like history books on comics, some stuff done by Steranko, the history of comics, those big giant magazines that are really cool. Lots of old art books. He was a big New Yorker guy, like political cartoons, so we were able to talk about that for a while. And I kind of like the history stuff. And there's also a ton in the boxes. One of my favorite things to read this time of year, my dad used to have like the definitive collection of like Calvin and Hobbes. And so that's something that I like associate with Christmas. And so he had a lot of like newspaper strip stuff, Foxtrot, Calvin and Hobbes, Peanuts, like Treasury edition books of that type of stuff, Walt Disney books, and stuff that he kind of let me take, which I was very appreciative of, because I'd sort of, you come down here and it's a Marvel museum, and it's obviously like what I loved. But when Hank was born, I started to think like, oh man, I got lots of my friends made jokes about like, oh, he's going to be a Batman fan, and what are you going to do then? And it's like, well, I'm going to let him like Batman. Like, as long as he's reading, I don't care. So it's sort of like in an effort to kind of broaden, like, not just Marvel knowledge, but like a history of the medium. I'm been like much more interested in say the past like 10 years. And so that was kind of a nice, like, well, here's a bunch of books on that I can kind of tie into that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So I will let you know how this shakes out. Hopefully I hit the magic number that we're both kind of looking at, while being able to enjoy, or at least chip in a little bit for the stuff that I would like to keep from this collection. So yeah, so there's that. So all because I read Avengers 164. How cool is that? So if you've been enjoying what I've been doing on the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. You ever stumbled upon anything like this? Anybody in your family have some hidden treasure? Somebody out there had a Action Comics #1 in an attic. So this is as close as I think I'm ever going to get to it, but it's perfect for me, like more than I could have ever. Like, this was when you were a kid. I remember texting my buddy that I grew up with in comics when this all sort of started happening, where I was like, the thing you always talked about as a kid, where you're like, I've got this relative that just has boxes upon boxes of comics that they're ready to part with. Like, you dream of that when you're a 10-year-old. So it took me a while, but I finally got there. Oh man. Okay. I almost forgot. This was the most, this was the thing I thought was the coolest. This Marvel Guide to Collecting Comics. It's this little newsprint thing, okay? Drawn by Walt. Look at that. It's Walt Simonson. And you've got like look at Nightcrawler hanging from the S by his tail, reading a comic. Wolverine's reading a comic. Colossus. You got Kitty up there. They're on stacks and stacks of comics. It's great. And then you open it up and it's like the origins of comics, and then kind of gives you the definitions of what a back issue is, the Silver Age, the Golden Age, original artwork, comic conventions, fanzines, what the Comics Code Authority is. Plus there's all this great art. Gives you the guideline for the beginning of collector of like what's mint, what's fine, what's good, what's fair, what's poor. This was your kids' CGC back then. And then this gives you a whole breakdown of the comic book cover, like what everything means on it. And then, you know, finding out what's right for you. And this gives you a little breakdown on what things were worth back then. Let's see. Oh man, ROM number 1 so Amazing Fantasy number 15 here was listed at $1,100. Fantastic Four number 1 was listed at $1,100. Amazing Spider-Man number 100 was $600. Dang. Then it talks about getting them half the fun, obtaining them, bagging and boarding them. A whole little thing there. And then, and yeah, kind of, yeah, just a fun little, I just, when I saw that, I was like, that is, like, that's a, you know, there's not too much that I know of, and I'm a pretty big X-Men guy. I know Simonson did a ton of X-Factor stuff, but I'd never seen this before, and so I thought that was really cool, and definitely like this is something that I am going to keep, and more than likely probably going to frame and hang up somewhere in the library, because I just think that is such a cool little piece of comic book history right there. So there you have it. So that is the this comic book find. So yeah, if you like what I'm doing with the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. It would do a lot to help grow the channel. I'm like, we're already in a niche market, and then I'm like pretty much just Marvel, so that's niche upon niche. And then I'm doing reviews of books from, you know, the Corner Box Classic thing is week to week, and I'm in March of 1982, so it's not like that's super topical. But hey, I'm enjoying it, and that's exactly what it is. It's just me talking about my love of the comics that I am reading and going through my collection. So, if you are new to the channel, I know that I talked about I'm waiting to do a room tour of this entire thing until after the new year when all the Christmas decorations are down, because it's Christmassy in here, and that's not how it normally looks 10 months out of the year. And then, yeah, I will be back on Wednesday. We'll be more than likely doing a bike ride up to the shop, Hank and I, to pick up our new books. Unless I have someone coming out to look at this, then we might have to drive up there to make sure that we're back in time for them to dig through this. So yeah, so thanks for watching. I know this has been sort of a weird one, but I've been looking forward to it. I think that letters page story is a pretty fun one. Yeah, so I will see you Wednesday as we take a ride up to get our new books. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a couple days. Bye.